Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am so excited to finally get to speak to you. We've been connecting through the performance and art community or NFT community. And yeah, when you released, when you spoke about Earthbound NFT at first, I was super intrigued, firstly by the design, and then I read a little bit more into the ethos, and I was just like, yeah, I have to speak to you about it. I have to chat to you. So yeah, thanks so much for joining me. How are you?
Of course. I am good, honestly. And I think that, long story short, this year, and I think for a lot of people this year is really just about kind of honing in on, what we want for ourselves. And I think that I'm right in the midst of that process right now, learning everything I, can possibly be learning. And it's an uphill battle, but I am very, very stoked and very, very motivated with, this project that I'm working on, because it's rooted in, living this lifestyle, living this, living our art every single day. And that's what the whole point of it is. This doesn't stem from me wanting to create a project that's going to go on to make millions of dollars and whatever and push dance to the next level. I mean, I do want to do that, but that's not what it's about. That's not what was created. And so I am doing great because I'm happy to say that Earthbound as a functional entity is in full swing. Me and all the beautiful people around me are actively creating things that are fulfilling us, like things that we would make either way. And that's what it's all about, providing that platform to put these things together. So yeah, I'm doing great. Also, I'm going to close my window because New York has a lot of, car sounds.
New York City noise pollution. We love that.
Yeah. But yeah,
that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you're on. It's an uphill battle in terms of the effort it takes, but it's also you're going up and there's only one way up.
yeah.
So that's pretty. I'm stoked for you. And also I also marvel at the amount of projects you seem to juggle, just from your Twitter. You're doing a lot. So on that note,
It's definitely stressful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where is this drive coming from? What's your motivation? Tell me, well, tell us your story. Who are you and how did you find yourself in this rabbit hole?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that leads me into what, I would love to, touch on, which I was about to touch on even, was the fact that Earthbound stems from me literally hitting a wall in my career. In the type of work that I was indulging in, the type of business that I was building for myself. I got to a point where I realized there was a lot of limitations for me, not only financially, but ethically, and when it comes to what projects I'm saying yes to, which ones I'm saying no to, and how that makes me feel and how happy I am. And that's, that was a tough pill to swallow, because I think, I am a full-time freelancer. Everything I do, in this world of creating art is what allows me to pay my bills. And so I really need to be on top of what can I do to not only lift myself up, but also lift up the people around me, so that we can collectively all, get what we feel we deserve, or just start to build a process of art creation that is rooted in a bit more, long-term capability and growth. And I see, all these incredible dancers that I spend a lot of time with, from, my roommates that I live with, who are, also on this journey, trying to make a living doing what they love, to this whole entire community that I'm indulged in here in New York, full of countless numbers of incredible dancers. And all of them are so, stuck in this cycle of just not really figuring out what's next, what the next step is, what are we actually going to do to, grow out of and into something that will take us, years and years and years ahead. And so I think that's kind of the wall that I hit, and why I decided that this project was going to be something that I, just put all my time into. Not all, but basically everything that I do is now somehow related to this, and meant to push this forward. So you say, like, I may look like I'm juggling a bunch of projects, but in my head, I'm actually just working towards one collective goal. Even something as simple as, let me take a client gig that has, maybe creatively nothing to do with Earthbound. It's still functional in the sense that the money I get from that will buy me X amount of time to work on Earthbound, right? A paycheck of $1,000, that covers my rent. And to me, that's not $1,000. That's another month of time to work on, what really matters. And so that's kind of like, I think, how, I work on as many things as I do at once. And, for anyone listening who doesn't actually know who I am, the work that I do, is all basically rooted in, directing visuals that are dance centric. And so whether that's a music video, whether that's a documentary, whether that's just a small visual concept that's being played with, anything at all, I will, work on, and I do work on every single day. And that's what my freelance career is based off of. And it's rooted in being a dancer. So I think that's where all this drive really comes from. Because at the end of the day, like, I know this struggle that dancers face because I've lived it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's super beautiful. First of all, that all of this stems from your own experience, so you can really empathize with the dance community. And I also you're directing that into spreading, I guess, fixing the pain points that you experienced.
Yeah.
And also, it seems like everything, all of the jobs you pick up, all the creative work you do is orbiting around Earthbound, which is, I think that's a great, I guess, pit in the arrow to direct your career, your life, your ethos, everything. I mean, for anyone listening, please go check out Aidan's work as well. It's seriously amazing. I'm super impressed. I'm so excited to talk more about Earthbound. We've already heard a lot, but I want to ask you about the name. I think it's so grounded, pun intended. How did you come up with the name Earthbound? And was it all directed by you, or do you have a team? Or tell us a little bit about that.
I got you. Can I take 1 minute? I'm just having a coughing fit right now. Right. So, when it comes to how Earthbound really came to be, it was a very interesting process because it was super natural in the way we kind of came up with that name. And when I say we, I refer to me, another New York City visual artist. Her name is Ashley Bland, who is also a dancer and a painter, photographer, sculptor, the whole 9 yards. Me, Ashley, and our 2 other friends, Tara Durkin and Julia Alaimo. These are all just female dancers here in New York who are incredible in their own right. The 4 of us went on a trip to Maine, and we stayed at this beach house with my family. And as we were there, we were just trying to take a break away from the city and just try to get re-inspired, because I think the 4 of us were all not really, sure what came next with our art, or we weren't feeling the inspiration, plain and simple. And so being out there, somewhere just so far away from New York City and this bustling society that we're always involved in, just kind of grounds you. And so for us, when we were there, we just felt one day really inspired to just go out and film a bunch of footage. We didn't really have any expectations. We just thought that it looked beautiful outside and it would be a great opportunity to just play around with some different movement. And as we were doing it, we kind of realized that the footage we were all taking, even though they were just random, little vignettes, they all kind of, contributed towards one theme. And that theme, was very related to earth and our humanly and innocence and our connection with it, and how small we are in comparison to the world that we live on. And so I think that we made this film that we just edited all this footage together, and it just kind of formed into something that we loved for ourselves, a little moment in history where we could go and look back and say, we felt very inspired in these moments. And everything that we talked about and thought about in that trip kind of circled around the ideas that Earthbound is really, aiming at. And so the four of us birthed, that name through this this film, and we just thought it fit it really well. And from there, I didn't really know what to do with it, right? Like, we made the film, time went on, I worked on whatever. And then eventually, as I started making my way into the Web3 space, I realized that, the angle at which Web3 was offering me an opportunity fit perfectly with the ideals of that project. And so I just, I figured it was a perfect opportunity to tie them together and take the next step with the name Earthbound that, the four of us had wanted to work on something with in the future. And it just turned out to be that this was perfect for it. So, it came to life like way before like NFTs even existed in my life, at least. Like, obviously they existed, since like 2017, but I had not really known about them, until way after Earthbound was a thing. So that's kind of like the interesting aspect behind it. That kind of proves that this isn't about, this is not about like Web3. It is about Web3, but it's about so much more than that. Like, this is about a whole entire systematic like discrepancy that we are trying to address.
So this show is like the slogan is basically humanizing Web3, and it's interesting because like a lot of people see Web3 as like this whole like a shift in a philosophy, like a what, whereas I reckon it's more of like a how can we get to where we've been wanting to get to for the longest time.
Exactly.
So yeah, like this is perfect, and I'm so happy that you like connected the dots and basically gave birth to this amazing project. I read your you read your white paper for Earthbound, and you speak about the dance industry dilemma, and I assume you're referring to, I guess, the current state of the dance industry from your perspective, from your like using your own reference points. Like, can you expand a little bit on this like dilemma? And just because my audience is probably going to be also in the Southern Hemisphere in like Australia, New Zealand, I think it would be useful, just to kind of provide some insight on what your experience is and what that dilemma actually is. And if it is it global?
Totally. Yeah. So the dilemma behind the dance industry is a tough one to crack because it's rooted in the, unchangeable fact that dance is a performance art, and it is typically consumed live when it's being sold on its own. And what I mean by that is the majority of the time that anyone in the whole entire world consumes dance, it's typically via either a social media platform, or it is seen in a live show that you actually go pay a one-time ticket for, get your money's worth, watch the show and leave, and then you're done. You can't take any videos, you can't take that experience with you. It is experienced there in real life for once. And that's why it holds that value. That's why a ticket to a Broadway show can be worth a couple $100s, because that's a real one-time experience. And it holds value because you can't just go back and look at it at any point in time. But, there's only so many live shows, especially there's such a limited amount of live shows that are actually incorporating a lot of the modernizing that's going on in the dance world right now, whether that's in the hip hop and street styles, whether that's in the contemporary styles. None of them are really actually being sold on a large scale, via a live show. At
Yeah.
least a scalable size, right? They might have like a one-time kind of thing where you have this big show that you're seeing them in a Justin Bieber concert or whatever, but then you also have to remember that there's that's not dance being sold, right? If you're going to see a dancer dance in a live show for another artist or for some other event such as a award show, the dance isn't being sold. The award show is what's being sold. The music is what's being sold, right? The Justin Bieber album per se is what is being sold, and the dancers are just a byproduct to sell it, right? And that is actually not the case with most art forms. I mean, most art forms, they indulge themselves in this advertisement based industry, but that's not what they rely on. Okay.
Yeah.
The music industry does not rely on movie placements in order to sell their album, right? Like the music industry relies on selling the album. It's like this problem that dancers can't really overcome because the inherent structure of it is that it's meant to be seen live. Okay. Yeah. And that in itself, that is the inherent, economic limitation, as I like to call it. No matter what, there is this economic limitation that you can't overcome in the real world that we have, right now, that we've integrated in. There is no way to actually overcome that economic limitation. And some may say, oh, well, social media, right? On social media, you can spread your, personal business with Instagram, with TikTok, with, YouTube. You can crack that code and you can make a living doing that. But then you have to remember, you're not actually selling that dance. You're not selling dancing as an art. You're selling ad revenue. You're selling brand deals. You're selling other things. Okay. You're not selling the actual art the same way that another artist could, such as a painter or even a photographer, right? Even a photographer being able to sell a print of their photo, that's amazing to a dancer. That if we could do that, that would be fantastic, right? We can't even do that.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's
you can
true.
kind of see now, you can see that this is just a very, very interesting wall to overcome, because even photographers, that's a game changer for them, right? Web3 is changing the game for photographers. There's so many new ways to make a living with that kind of art form. And, if it's such a big deal for photographers who could already sell physical versions of their art, then you can imagine for dancers, it's also a really, 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 really big deal, because this is the first time we can actually sell our art in a way where we can prove ownership over it, where it can actually live. Something that, is comparable to a live performance can now live indefinitely, the same way an original painting can. And I'm sure like a lot of people already understand that aspect, but I think what they don't understand is how big of a change that is, particularly for dancers, right? A lot of people say, oh, well, Web3 is a change for everybody. You're right. But I think that, you'd be ignorant to not recognize the fact that for dancers, it's not just a change, but it's a complete rework of everything that we've always been used to, So
total
I think,
uprooting, like all of the inherent, that's super good point.
Yeah, it's everything is different with this, every single thing. So, it could even go into, if you're a music video choreographer, now maybe your deal with choreographing a music video isn't going to be, oh, you pay me a one-time, choreography fee for all this work, and, done deal, whatever. I get, $1,000, $2,000, however much, depending on how big the artist is, and move on. And, that's my work. I contributed my art. It's just, you get it. And, now you own it forever. I don't think that really makes any sense. Right. Yeah. Like if you're collaborating with an artist, like why would it make sense? Like, I don't think that dancers should just be like an independent contractor that comes in, does the gig and leaves forever. If this project actually has artistic integrity, they should be considered an equal collaborator to some capacity. right? But the problem is dancers can't offer that in today's world because they're not the source of income, right? They don't have leverage, right? An artist doesn't have to give the dancer an equal share because guess what? The musician is the one who's bringing in the income. So it makes sense as to why this problem exists in our industry that a lot of people will complain about. But in reality, Web3 fixes that issue because we can now say, oh, we have the leverage. If you want to do the music video with me, these are my terms, right? These are my terms. I need this much percentage ownership in this project. And if this is to be sold, this is to be, just created into an NFT, for example, I need you to understand that I also have leverage here. I also have meaning, towards the value of this project. So it can tie into literally anything.
Yeah, it's super empowering. And I think a lot of dancers are going to just feel so liberated and finally feel like, like their art really matters, like beyond, I mean, I'm sure like everyone has belief in their own art, but it's hard when the majority of the industry doesn't have the same like correlating belief. But super bullish on the future of NFT dance, like as usual, GM. So in terms of like what you're trying to do with Earthbound, can you take us like a little bit? Do you have like a rough roadmap or certain touch points that you like wanna meet along the way, or like take us a little bit through your, I guess, current or like desired journey to get to a certain destination?
Yeah, totally. So when it comes to Earthbound, there's like a few main functioning points of the project, right? So the intention is to have multiple different, let's say branches, of the project that are all doing something different. And those different things would involve, for one, selling and purchasing NFTs. That's going to be, one of our most, it's going to be our big sector that we're really working on right now, which is the actual act of building up a portfolio of works via our collaborators and me, and actually selling those works and also using the funds that are sold through those works to, purchase other dance works to help push forward the dance NFT community. So that's one sector of the project. The other one is going to be an actual functioning production company. So the intention of Earthbound is to bring together artists of multiple disciplines to work together in a more seamless way, where we don't really have to jump through so many hoops to get involved in projects, because now ownership is very clearly split between collaborators. And one of the main aspects of Earthbound when it comes to being a production company is that every artist involved, when they associate themselves with the name, they are also associating themselves with everyone else that, puts themselves under that name. So for example, one of the musicians we're working with right now by the name of Naji, he's a huge fan of dancers and a huge fan of dancing, and he wants to support them as much as he can. And now I'm giving him a streamlined way of involving himself in the dance community and getting, his music usable by dancers that might want to create to it. And that is a very big plus, not only for Naji, but it's a big plus for the dance community and the people around me that want to be creating things and having ownership over them. Because, not being able to have music for something is a big problem right now for dancers. But that kind of leads into the production company aspect of it, which is the fact that we are going to get asked to do a music video by, maybe one of the artists we're working with, or maybe someone is going to, see us through the work we do with them. And that's going to lead to a gig. I could go on and on about how, freelance gigs come up, but having all these different artists attached to this project just gives a whole entire team like that's operating under one roof. Like you get the best of both worlds when you're coming to Earthbound, and our clients actually have everything they need to cover all the bases for their projects. So right
Awesome.
now we just released, or we didn't release, we just wrapped and finished editing on a dance project here in New York that involved a lot of different artists on the team that contributed, whether it's behind the scenes or in the actual video. So that's going to be very exciting.
Sweet.
And things are in full swing on the production company side of things. Um,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm like, my God, my throat.
That's
Good
okay.
timing, right?
It's snowing in New York, so
So the third aspect to the production company, or sorry, to Earthbound, is going to be a hope. Okay, this one's more long term, but the idea is to have a gateway for dancers outside of just my community to now get involved with this whole entire project. Because Earthbound is
yeah.
starting right now as a more, close, tight knit curation of works that is within the circle of people that we're working with. Um, we're looking for more and more people to collaborate with, but the fact still remains that on a large scale, most dancers don't have any streamlined process or way to get involved in Web3, right? And so we're
Right.
looking to eventually solve that problem, but we first think it's important to build the foundation and the structure in which we're actually going to be providing a demand for dance NFTs, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the first problem on the table. We could go ahead and build this, this platform that allows dancers to come in, give in their information, whatever, look for different musicians to collaborate with, and have this streamlined process of connecting music and dancers and all artists from all angles to collaborate together. But what's the point in doing that if there's actually not yet an answer to, the question that we're all facing, which is why would someone want to collect dance works, right? Like what is there
Hmm.
in it for them, right?
Very
And I
true.
think that kind of leads us into the last, functioning branch, if you will, of Earthbound, which is the event side of things. So we are actually going to, be hosting multiple different kinds of events, whether that's, galleries or like live shows, whether that's, film festivals, whether that is, workshops, performances, the whole nine yards, literally everything. And that's already something that I've been involved in here in New York. And like we already have built a community here of events. Right before the pandemic happened, I hosted this big event here in New York. We did it in Brooklyn. It's called 1520, which if you know much about hip hop history, 1520 is the street address of where the birthplace of hip hop occurred. And I think that it was a really, really great night where like all these different dancers from around the city and the tri-state area came. We did a big showcase. We did a mix of painting and dancing and freestyle
Wow.
circles and photography, videography, literally everything, all in this beautiful space in Brooklyn called Artel. And it was such a successful night. We raised a good amount of money to put back into the community, and everybody had an amazing time.
Amazing.
Like the turnout was incredible, but obviously COVID just shut that right down.
Yeah.
So coming into this year, we're trying to resume that aspect of everything, and just expand on it as much as we can. So NFT NYC in June is hopefully going to be the beginning of that. So you will see more.
Amazing.
And we just think
I'm
that
so
this,
excited.
oh my God, we just think that this aspect of things is what's actually going to build a community that will provide demand, right? Because at the end of the day, like
Yeah.
dance is about the real life experience you have with it. And I think if we can build a business around that, that actually is a functioning real life, business that brings in revenue to, put back into this community via these events, via these workshops, I
Mhm.
think that's going to just, that's the icing on the cake for us to really just solidify a tight knit community of people who understand the purpose for everything. So long term goal, TLDR. First, we're going to build a portfolio of works. Secondly, we're going to be hosting events. thirdly, we're going to be a functioning production company, which is already, happening. That just kind of is along the way. And fourth, we're going to be an event company that eventually we will hopefully, long term have a space of our own that will embody everything that we're about. So that's kind of the roadmap for now. But
Wow.
I'd like to keep it loose because at the end of the day, like the goal is just to bring people together to create as many beautiful things as possible. And whatever we can do to achieve that and help that happen, we're going to do, within reason. So,
Yeah, amen. I am so excited to see all of this, and even the 1520 event. It sounds incredible. I can imagine how much more like incredible it's going to be once you get the addition of, I guess the magic of Earthbound fruitioning in both Web 2, seeping into the Web 3, seeping into Web 2 well. Now, just to wrap things up, I always end my interviews with some fun questions. So let me ask you this. I have a section called Rug, Mint, or Burn. Now, I won't use smiles because it's just too hard to choose with your favorite NFT project.
Yeah.
So let's go with let's say Bored Ape Club, Squiggles, and CryptoPunks.
Oh, okay. That's tough because now I guess Bored Ape and CryptoPunks are so like, ooh.
Yeah.
So you said, sorry, Rug, Mint, or Burn.
Correct.
Okay. Ooh, that's tough. All right, so I guess I'm getting honest here.
Yeah, this is not financial advice.
So Mint, I'd say CryptoPunks. Solely because CryptoPunks is like the OG. And now that it's owned by Yuga, I just think it has a lot more potential in the long term and will always be. I think there's always like kind of a safety net that's going to be surrounding CryptoPunks just simply because of the fact that it is, the first notable PFP project. And I think their ecosystem will now just continue to grow even bigger. I'd say, Burn, unfortunately, Squiggles.
No.
I don't want to say Burn, right? But if we're if we're talking from the perspective of what is, in my opinion, how it looks from I guess an investment perspective, it just seems like Bored Ape because of just the name that it has made for itself. It's just become a pop culture icon. And I think that's kind of something that unfortunately gives it an advantage in the long run. So if I had the choice to choose between just simply artistically and which project I'm more so aligned with, I would say Squiggles, but unfortunately I'm going to say Burn for Squiggles. And I'm going to say, I guess, Rug for Bored Ape, because I guess that does kind of, in a way, express my opinions about it, which is that I just kind of think the concept behind Bored Ape, even though it's really cool, don't get me wrong, I just don't feel any sort of emotional connection to it whatsoever, to be honest. So, Rug.
Thank you so much for the conversation today. How, for listeners on my platforms, how can they support or even get involved with Earthbound, whether or not they're in New York City right now?
Totally. Yeah. So I think, first and foremost, I will just say it straight up. The best way to support us is to buy our NFTs, right? That is the whole point of putting up the work that we have, is to help support our endeavor and help support the things that we're trying to do in the real world. And we think that at the end of the day, dancers don't make a lot of money. They simply don't. And that's the problem we're trying to solve. So literally something as tiny as, one photo NFT sale from our photography Genesis collection can make a difference. And it's just really hard to go shilling things like that. But I just want to remember, I want everyone to remember the only way for us to put on these beautiful events that make so many people happy and give such a great time is to pay for the costs of putting it on. And Without money, we can't do that. And unfortunately, that's how the world is structured. So that's why I say the best way to support us is to look into our NFT portfolios and, research the artists that, are involved in it. They're all so incredible. We have, multiple different photographers involved in Earthbound that have released work on our foundation, multiple different dancers of, all kinds from all places. So just get yourself involved in that. Watch the work, even something as simple as just watching the work, looking at it is really, really means a lot to me and, everybody that I'm working with, because that's why we do it. And we like to think that our work speaks for itself. And that's kind of the point of this all, is to, raise the standard for what dance art can be and, change the public perception and shift it towards, more so being a fine art rather than a, commodity that you consume on your phone every single day. So that's kind of, where I'm at with it. Not to say that, TikTok and Instagram and dancing like isn't good. Like it is, like it's great for the culture. But structurally it does nothing for us, right? Like it just allows us, it really doesn't do much for dancers structurally. And you've seen that issue with TikTok running into all these problems with choreographers of these dances just completely being thrown under the rug and everybody else making millions off of them. So even on a platform like TikTok, where dance is so big, you're even seeing this problem. So social media is great for dance. Like I wanted to leave it on that note. Like social media, like community wise and culturally, is really great for our growth. But I think we're kind of like nearing the cap of what we've gotten from it. And I think that's why, Web3 is the next step for dancers. So if you believe in dance, if you like dance, if you also are interested in Web3, what better than to support all those things at once? So, yeah.
100%. And remember, if you buy an NFT, it's yours. Like ownership is yours. You're supporting, and like honestly, these artists put their like blood and sweat into these pieces of art. So please just please see the value like we do.
And I'm not saying like if you're watching, like I'm not saying you need to buy any piece. I'm like literally just watching it is all I want for you. Looking at it, because art is beautiful and we all need more of it in our lives.